the paper trail. Let's go, 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 go.
Yeah, 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 yeah. For the love of money, niggas come around. For the love of money, some stay around. For the love of money, what a nigga will do. For the love of the money, yeah. I gotta shake it 12 at night to 5 in the morning. They don't give a fuck now. If it's for that money, niggas gon' bark and they bite like a motherfucking dog. Gotta party like a motherfucking dog. For that cat, I am gon' roof and I'm barking at that cat, and I am gon' take the roof off when I'm riding that ride. Rip leaning to the left, but I'm steady on the only right. I'm swerving with a purpose, with a purpose. A nigga been sipping on that purple. A nigga been cheaping on that purple. Cause I'm getting money, I'm getting money. Cause I'm getting money. And I'm laughing all the way to the motherfucking bank. And I'm telling her, tell me later. And she thinking what I'm thinking. Damn me getting money. I walk about the bank and I stuck up in the wheel. Headed to my next big destination. Somewhere where I'm gonna be faded. Sipping on a motherfucking Molotov. Feet in the fucking sand. Looking like a motherfucking distant fucking land myself. Wherever I land, I must be fly myself and I ain't playing.
Let's just say he wouldn't be the first to die a suspicious death from saying too much about Epstein, including maybe Epstein himself. One of Jeffrey Epstein's most famous co-conspirators let's just say he wouldn't be the first to die a suspicious death from saying too much about Epstein, including maybe Epstein himself. One of Jeffrey Epstein's most famous co-conspirators, Lex Wexner, is finally answering some questions about his alleged involvement with the late, well, allegedly late, perverted financier, we'll call him. We're going to dive deep into this deposition today, which I'll just say he may have perjured himself, allegedly. But first, let's briefly summarize the history of Wexner's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So Lex Wexner is an American billionaire businessman and the founder of a global retail conglomerate called L Brands. And he owns some of the most iconic brands in retail history, such as Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, and Abercrombie & Fitch. Wexner was also a prominent funder of pro-Israel initiatives through the Wexner Foundation, which has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into programs such as Birthright Israel and various other leadership fellows for Israeli public officials. And in regards to Epstein, he had this very mysterious, very opaque, decades-long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, to whom he granted full power of attorney over his vast personal fortune and even donated his Manhattan mansion to him. So Wexner has always been this central figure in the Epstein investigation, in the Epstein lore, shall we say. And for many, many years, we didn't hear much from Wexner about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, other than saying it was released the video of Wexner's deposition, which occurred on the 18th of February, 2020. Now, it sounds like he was just joking around, but let's just say he wouldn't be the first to die a suspicious death from saying too much about Epstein, including
We're going dark on them. Bang, bang. We're going dark on them.
Briefly summarize the history of Wexner's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So Lex Wexner is an American billionaire, L Brands. And he owns some of the most iconic brands in. Wexner was also a prominent funder of pro-Israel initiatives through the Wexner Foundation, which has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into programs such as Birthright Israel and various other leadership fellows for Israeli public officials. And in regards to Epstein, he had this very mysterious, very opaque, granted full power of attorney over his vast personal fortune, and even donated his Manhattan mansion to him. So Epstein lore, shall we say. And for many, many years, we didn't hear much from Wexner about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, other than saying it was, one of the biggest regrets of his life. The video of Wexner's deposition, which occurred on the 18th of February, 2026. And let's just say it starts with quite the banger.
It was just regularly done. Answer the question. It's okay.
Now, it sounds like he was just joking around, but from saying too much about Epstein, including maybe Epstein himself. We'll just say that. But what prompted his lawyer to intervene is quite interesting.
Just so people could be walking out with forks and spoons. Gee, that's a good idea. We ought to have an inventory. Then there's I hired a lady to be like that.
Very interesting, right? Jeffrey Epstein had the U.S. Embassy in Rome as his personal house manager. And this little detail is quite interesting because of Rome's history as a CIA hub for Cold War operations. It says here, the United States first approached Italy as early as 1951 when the CIA broached the idea of mounting what is called a, quote, stay behind or the fall of the Soviet Union in the, late 80s and early 90s. And this is one of those little details that's
Bang, bang. Look, we're going to have to rewind this. Yeah. We got a little skipperatory right now going down, so.
Answer the question. It's okay.
let's just say he wouldn't be the first to die a suspicious death from saying Epstein's most famous co-conspirators, Lex Wexner, is finally answering some questions about his alleged involvement with the allegedly late, perverted financier, we'll call him. We're going to dive deep into this deposition today, which I'll just say he may have self. But first, let's brief history of Wexner's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So Lex Wexner is an American billionaire called L Brands, and he owns some of the most iconic brands in retail history, such as Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, and Abercrombie and Fitch. Wexner was also a prominent funder of pro-Israel initiatives through the Wexner Foundation, which has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into programs such as birth officials. And in regards to Epstein, he had this very mysterious relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, to whom he granted full power of attorney over his vast personal fortune and even donated his Manhattan mansion to him. So Wexner has always been this central figure in the Epstein investigation, in the Epstein lore, shall we say. And for many, many, many years, we didn't hear much from Wexner about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, other than saying it was, one of the biggest regrets of his life, until yesterday, that is, when the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform released the video of Wexner's deposition, which occurred on the 18th of February, 2026. And let's just say it starts with quite the banger.
It was just regularly done. Answer the question. It's okay.
Now, it sounds like he was just joking around, but let's just say he wouldn't be the first to die a suspicious death from saying too much about Epstein, including maybe Epstein himself. I want to say that. But what prompted his lawyer to intervene is quite interesting.
Jeff said people could be walking out with forks and spoons. Gee, that's a good idea. We ought to have an inventory. But then there was I hired a lady that be like the house manager who had run the U.S. Embassy in Rome.
Okay, so very interesting, right? Jeffrey Epstein had Wexner hire a woman who ran the embassy in Rome, the U.S. Embassy in Rome, as his personal house manager. And this little detail is quite interesting because of Rome's history as a CIA hub for Cold War operations. It says here, the United States first approached Italy as early as 1951 when the CIA broached the idea of mounting what is called a, quote, stay-behind organization, one of several in post-war Europe. And this pretty much lasted until the fall of the Soviet Union in the, late 80s and early 90s. And this is one of those little details that sort of fuels the speculation about Epstein's alleged hidden intelligence links. And there are a couple other moments like this in the deposition.
How did he originally present himself to you? What services did he say he was offering?
Well, when I first met him, it was just alone. He didn't represent anything and I didn't ask anything. I was just meeting a friend's acquaintance.
As that business relationship became closer and you eventually hired him, I assume he pitched his services in some way. What was his way of framing what he was offering to you?
I think it was his experience at an industrial level, like working for a big company like Bear Stearns, and then he had done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
My question is, how did Epstein, who started as a high school math teacher with no formal finance credentials, gain access to the absolute highest circles of global wealth, even before he met Les Wexner, who, we sort of credit today as his primary financier during his rise to prominence? Could it be that he was already a spy of sorts, right? We know, based on the files that have been released by the DOJ, that Epstein had this fake Austrian passport in the 1980s, fake in the sense that he was obviously not Austrian, but very real in the sense that it was a functioning passport which he used to travel around Europe. So based on that evidence alone, it's almost irrefutable at this point that Epstein was some kind of intelligence asset. So once again, I don't think it was an accident how Epstein became connected to Les Wexner, a prominent Zionist billionaire.
How did you first come to meet Mr. Epstein?
It was really by accident. I was friends with a couple, Bob and Wendy Meister, and I was in Florida, and I'd never been to Florida. So they were driving me around, showing me what South Florida looked like, and and they showed me the Breakers Hotel, and they were just driving around the driveway, and Bob stopped the car, and he said, "There's somebody you should meet, really smart, savvy guy named Jeffrey Epstein." And so they stopped the car. I was sitting in the back seat, and they introduced me to Jeffrey, and we drove off. That was about it.
So at that time, you had no knowledge of Mr. Epstein until Mr. Meister introduced you to him?
Never heard of him, never saw him, never met him.
Did Mr. Meister ever raise any concerns about Mr. Epstein?
No, he didn't.
I just met him, didn't know who he was, but just, signed everything, all of my finances over to him. That totally checks out, right? Another interesting tidbit here, and credit Gen X Girl, great researcher on X, who found this interview with Bob Meister, who supposedly introduced Epstein to Wexner. And he told Vanity Fair that he and his wife, Wendy, warned Wexner to stay away from Epstein. So that totally contradicts the deposition. So somebody's lying, might be Lex, but could very well be the both of them, because how could you not know? He knew, because even after he knew, he didn't really care, as you'll see in this next clip.
Did you yourself write this letter to Mr. Epstein?
Sadly, I did.
Did Ms. Maxwell approach you to write this letter for Mr. Epstein's birthday?
I think the request was to write a card or a note or something for a birthday book.
And did that come from Ms. Maxwell?
I don't remember.
Mr. Wexner, would you please read the main body of the birthday note for the record, please?
I wanted to get you what you want. So here it is. Happy birthday, your friend Leslie.
And what was your understanding of what Mr. Epstein would want?
He was a bachelor, so I drew a pair of boobs. As a kind of a joke and offhandedly, I'd say.
Understand.
I hope you do.
You've said a few times throughout this deposition today that you did not consider Mr. Epstein a friend of yours. However, you signed this letter, and I quote, "Your friend Leslie." Why would you sign "your friend Leslie" to someone you did not consider to be a friend of yours?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, nobody knows nothing. Okay, so my hypothesis is this is just me thinking about this, is that Jeff probably recruited due to his dark proclivities, because that way he is someone the higher ups could control. And did Wexner know? Of course he did. Come on, you could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his reaction in that letter to him, although I'm sure he will go to his grave claiming he didn't know anything at all.
Mr. Wexner, the committee is investigating the circumstances surrounding Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell and the trafficking of young women, trafficking and sexual abuse of young women or girls. Did Ms. Maxwell ever introduce you to any young woman or girl?
No, I don't think she ever introduced me to any female or man.
Did Ms. Maxwell ever ask you to introduce a young woman or girl to your friends or associates?
No.
Did you ever introduce any young woman or girl that you met through Ms. Maxwell to any of your friends or associates?
Objection. Assumes fact not in evidence.
You're fine. So, yeah. Or you should answer the question.
A massive recruiting pipeline of both men and women, young men and women. Also, another thing to keep in mind is this is the same guy, Les Wexner, who in 1992 hired this gentleman named Mike Jeffries to run Abercrombie and Fitch, and he would use this company to recruit men into prostitution, okay? I don't think a reasonable person can come to that kind of conclusion to say, no, he didn't know anything. He was probably, at the very least, looking the other way, because guess what? There are other important geopolitical operations that had to be done. Another great report from Drop Site News, Epstein, Israel, and the CIA, how the Iran-Contra planes landed at Lex Wexner's base. Jeffrey Epstein helped Leslie Wexner repurpose the CIA's Iran-Contra planes from arms smuggling to shipping lingerie. The very brief skinny on the Iran-Contra affair is that the CIA was shipping weapons to Iran, using Israel as a middleman, and then deploying the profits to arm the Contras against the leftist Nicaraguan government. It's like, what? How were these guys, these finance and business guys, involved in this kind of thing at all? And could that be why the FBI nor the DOJ has ever bothered to question Wexner about Epstein?
Did the FBI or Department of Justice ever directly speak to you about Epstein or Maxwell? Has the FBI or DOJ ever directly contacted you or spoken to you about
Not to my knowledge.
Never.
Never.
And that, my friends, is definitely not an accident. There's a reason why they're not looking, and it's because there are massive geopolitical major power centers that could be disruptive if Wexner were to be taken down. And Whitney Webb, who just did her first interview of 2026, explains this perfectly. Welcome back, Whitney. Let's play this.
Yeah, I don't anticipate Leslie Wexner being arrested at any point. he is far too powerful, and his money is everywhere. And honestly, he has extremely deep ties to numerous officials in the Israeli government through his philanthropies. He focused pretty much the bulk of the Wexner Foundation on training up prominent figures, first in the U.S. In the Jewish community in particular. And now those fellows, those Wexner fellows, essentially run AIPAC. It has an extremely close relationship with AIPAC, obviously one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the United States. And the other side of his leadership training via his foundation has been with Israeli public officials who have, these relationships as a result of that. With Wexner. And I doubt, given, AIPAC's influence, as well as, what you touched on earlier with Israel's role with Epstein, it just does not seem particularly likely in any capacity.
Now, I agree with everything she's saying in terms of Wexner's power and the current political operators in the U.S. and how much power they have. But I'm actually optimistic in the sense that I think something will happen. The dam is breaking. There's going to be a massive reckoning. What that will look like, I don't know for sure. The outcome may not be exactly what we all desire, but there's no doubt the elites are scared. I mean, Prince Andrew was just arrested. So I have this very powerful feeling of inevitability that something will happen. So let's stay strong and let's keep at it. That is it for me this week. I want to know, where do you think we're headed in terms of this Epstein accountability? Will we see arrests in America like we're seeing in other parts of the world? Sound off in the comment section below. Also, if you want to support my journalism, you can become a member by going to my website, 5149jameslee.com. We can fight back against these evil forces. You can also pick yourself up some merch there. But if you're not able to contribute, no worries at all. Just take a second to like this video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
I guess just because sex trafficking is real doesn't mean the conspiracy theory around it is.
Well, I think there's plenty of evidence out there. I keep getting sent heinous videos all the time of children being trafficked.
Shocking arrest of the man who helped launch Abercrombie & Fitch to must-wear brand status. The accusers numbering more than a dozen. Their allegations horrifying.
And when it's necessary to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And
Jimmy?
Yeah, yes, Kurt.
I just can't.
His hair looks like he had his photo taken while falling into the abyss. That's what it looks like. Look, show him.
Jimmy!
Yeah. So you remember this guy? This is Alex Karp. He's
yes.
He's a meth head and also the head
Jimmy.
of Palantir, which, by the way, has all your data. So you know how the government isn't legally allowed to spy on you, even though they do. Well, Palantir is a private company that was actually funded and started by the CIA and works for this. Their one client seems to be the CIA. Anyway, this is Palantir. He's in charge of the surveillance state that you now live under. And remember when he flipped out during a interview with this guy? Remember he was doing this?
I made a lot of decisions when we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago or more. When I made every decision.
So he's back at it.
That's an early 90s Tom Arnold I'm looking at.
Yeah. So he's back at it. And he's Palantir Technology CEO Alex Karp couldn't stay seated in his chair as he proudly stated, "We kill people sometimes," while speaking to his shareholders. This is real.
Your hair before you say that shit.
Oh. So let's watch. And I can't wait for this day to end when the guys who are the most powerful business guys in the room show up in T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Simon Cowell kind of started that by hosting a national television show in a T-shirt instead of wearing a collared shirt and looking nice. So now every asshole in the world wants to wear a T-shirt when they go to work because it makes them look, oh, he must really be powerful because look, he can dress like it's laundry day when he goes to work. When he's doing he's doing a call to his investors.
That's my dream to do that, to wear an undershirt while I talk to my jerk off investors and they have to tolerate. They probably got dressed up too.
Oh, here we go.
Sweatpants.
Oh, here we go. Ready? And so let's listen to what he said.
Alex.
We're doing it, and I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right.
our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And
Jimmy?
Yeah, yes, Kurt.
I just killed a man, Jimmy. Woo, I hope that's annoying. Woo! We're doing it, Jimmy.
His hair looks like he had his photo taken while falling into the abyss. That's what it looks like. Look, show him.
Jimmy!
Yeah.
We're doing it.
So here it says, when a CEO treats lethal force like a quirky product feature, that's not bravado, that's rot.
And that is our Palantir logo. Thank you. That's not bravado. That's rot. Yeah, sometimes it's rot.
Sometimes it's rot. I like what she says. Shannon Watt says, imagine if a woman running a company that earns billions from government contracts showed up at an investor meeting wearing a T-shirt with unbrushed hair, and then while gesturing like a meth addict, celebrated killing people.
That's not what Hillary does?
I think she brushes her hair. She wears a brooch. She doesn't wear a T-shirt, and she's not doing this the whole time.
Hey, yeah. Hillary sits very still. Sometimes she'll go like this at balloons. Oh. Look at his horns.
Kim.com says Peter Thiel and Alex Karp murdered innocent children in Gaza. They may have money, but they have no respect. When you see gore videos of Palestinian kids without limbs, those guys are probably involved. Imagine making money by killing children. I couldn't sleep at night. Well, they don't have any problem.
Yeah, well, sometimes we kill children. We're doing it.
I don't know. Kim.com doesn't look like you sleep at night. I don't know if you've looked very closely.
You probably need a CPAP machine, I'd imagine.
Because he doesn't look like he sleeps at all. Kim.com. Maybe he hangs upside down like Batman. That would have.
He's probably just sitting in a comfy chair. I bet.
But I'm the Steve Jobs of killing people. That's I like that.
I'm trying to do his perfect Alex Carr.
How about this one?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Reminds me of that guy.
Yeah.
Remember that? Now, if you've seen
Yeah.
now, Misha hasn't seen this movie.
I want to watch it with you.
Oh.
Yeah, but put
I'll
it
do a
in
movie night.
Lord of the Rings terms. Come on, Palantir
Dr.
and
Strangelove.
Bilbo.
So let's remember what he has said previously.
You need a higher purpose, and I also think you often need a lower purpose.
Nice.
Like the higher purpose for me.
What's the lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us.
A dream?
Wow, the lower purpose: spray drug piss on everybody.
Yeah,
Wow,
I got plenty of that, Jimmy. I got plenty of drug piss. I just need you just give me the drone. Show me the lobbyist.
Talk about public enema number one. Am I right? Come on, come on.
Yeah. Are you sure you would have fentanyl pee there, buddy? It looks like you're on Adderall pee to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something a lot stronger than Adderall is my guess.
Yeah.
Because I never, even Destiny, who I'm pretty sure does meth because of Jaw.
Yeah.
Never seen him do that.
Never saw it. Here's what Kim Iverson has to say about Alex Karp.
He wrote a book. At its core, this book isn't just a book about AI. It is essentially a manifesto. The Technological Republic, hard power, soft belief, and the future of the West. And what he means by that is pretty radical. The tech elite, Silicon Valley founders, engineers, AI builders shouldn't just build products and chase markets. They should basically function as a governing class, not elected politicians, but a strategic elite working hand in hand with the state to shape the country's direction.
Now we've talked about this. Steve Bannon brought this up when he came on the show. Remember, he was talking about how guys like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk want to be these techno-feudal overlords who rule us, right? And it's not really a democracy, which it's not a democracy anyway. But she's saying that that's their plan. Now we've talked about this when we had on Derek Bros. He talked about how this has been a plan since World War II to have a techno state take over North America, all the way from South America to the North Pole, and so that's this is not so that's really, by the way, that's what's happening. Unless you know it or not, we are now under the thumb of Palantir surveillance state.
That's right. And we're going to take more land and we're going to be on speed. Does that remind you of anybody from history? It better not. It better not remind you.
Better not remind you of Hitler. But here we go. Now he says,
Silicon Valley just builds food delivery apps, dating apps, social media stuff. He says that markets are too democratic, that they just give people what they want, not what they need. You're giving them entertainment. But what they need is supposedly AI weapon systems, battlefield autonomy, surveillance infrastructure, military coordination tools. He doesn't frame AI military dominance as a reluctant necessity. He frames it as a moral imperative. So in his view, building military AI is virtuous because it defends the West. He encourages tech companies to work closely with the Pentagon, intelligence agencies, and law enforcement. He wants that fusion of tech, AI, surveillance in our government. He argues for this. He actually sees this as a good thing. And then he goes on to say when he's promoting his book, oh yeah, and by the way, I want to spray my critics with fentanyl-laced urine. Alex Karp now has many people in our government by the nuts. Now that we've integrated all of this AI tech into the government. Really, the government has been like this for a while. We've seen this with the military-industrial complex. The people that made the missiles, people that make all the bombs, the people that make all the airplanes, all the tech, they essentially been controlling our government. That's why we're in endless war. So that is what the military-industrial complex has been able to do, is hold our nation hostage by being so powerful. And now it's the AI guys.
And now it's the AI guys.
Yeah.
And by the way, when he says that they're crushing it, they were doing really good. But here now it seems to be it's going downhill.
Yeah,
Palantir
sorry, Jimmy. We call crushing it is not what you think you want. It's what you need, and we needed for it to go downhill. And now we need to spy on you.
So Palantir's 1984 level spyware could be used to prevent crime. But instead, it's being used to murder God knows who from God knows where and God knows why with our tax dollars. At Palantir, we believe that software is the critical enabler of modern mission systems. Since 2008, we proudly partnered with the U.S. Army, embedding alongside users to design and deploy modern mission essential software solutions. Today, Palantir solutions are deployed across nearly every Army mission area. Oh, okay. No big deal.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it.
And she says no one still ever mentions the disease surveillance piece. Transhumanist controlled Palantir was tasked with surveilling SARS-CoV-2, the novel pathogen that accelerates biological aging in humans. They gained legitimacy and then they moved to AI warfare. So Americans never hear about this for some reason. It's puzzling. CDC awards Palantir consolidated disease surveillance contract worth $500 million. Palantir supplying Israel with new tools since Hamas war started. Data firm to hold board meeting in Tel Aviv for first time. CEO Alex Karp, Peter Thiel met Israel president during the visit. Wow. So, and just to let you know what else he has said, Alex Karp has said the U.S. will very likely fight a three-front war against Russia, China, and Iran. That's where they make their money.
Fingers crossed, we're going to be doing it.
And it's going to happen. Here's just Palantir's mega database combines all of your data into mass surveillance nightmare. Medical records, facial scans, location tracking, social security, debt, visa status, created by billionaire Peter Thiel. It's a blueprint for tracking, profiling, controlling your life. No big deal. That's who's. So you want to know about what's a shadow government? There's your shadow government.
Did you realize Alex Karp has the same intro to talking about this as Tony does to Kill Tony? Because we're doing it.
Because we're doing it.
That's what Kill Tony. That's what Tony. Because we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Yeah. Did Alex Karp steal that amazing opening? Do you think?
So there's Alex Karp, a guy who has more power than you thought, and he should. And most people don't know who he is.
Sorry.
You. So what we are is the frog in the pot, and it's slowly boiling, and we don't notice. And people don't notice because they're too busy trying to afford gas and groceries and schooling and healthcare and their pharmaceuticals and also try to squeeze in a vacation if that's possible. So that's what's going on. People don't have time yet. But once the US dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world, and their 401ks tank, and the dollar tanks, and their whole savings tank, and their retirement tanks, and their houses tank, then there will be people in the street and we will have a revolution. But until then, we're going to be ruled by criminals.
You're going to be lucky to have a frog in a pot, Jimmy. Honestly, I don't even think you'll be entitled to fentanyl urine the way you're talking.
I know.
By the way, that frog in the pot myth that everybody says, no, frog will jump right out. They won't sit there and boil. So the guy that said that is some weird German vivisectionist who cut out part of the frog's brain in an amazing Fauci-like experiment and then discovered it won't move.
Oh, wow. It's brilliant.
But you know what? It still works because that's America. You got half your brain cut out. And you sit there like a frog, like a lobotomized frog.
And if you want to hear my jokes about this, come see me in Lansing, Milwaukee, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Hey, come see me on tour in Lansing, Milwaukee, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. And don't go anywhere else, because if you do, they'll charge you more.
We're here in Rio de Janeiro, and I guarantee you this will be an unforgettable experience as you get to taste the food, the culture, have experiences with the historical aspect of Brazil. That's right, one of the major parts of the African diaspora. And guess what? We want you to join us here in Brazil. The views are amazing, the food is spectacular, and the experience is unforgettable. And the only thing that's missing is you. Join us.
Your explanation is he must have had the hots for Epstein. I don't know how that explains excluding him from the investigation either. There's a
He wears a tailored suit, speaks like an intellectual, and governs like an investment. And the youngest, behind his dazzling smile and the rhetoric of an elite graduate, lies a story that has more to do with high finance than with being close to the people. He is a president who made millions before he even held public office. A head of state whose fear advisor beat up demonstrators, and a man whose love story with his former teacher divides the country as much as his politics. He wears a tailored suit. Emmanuel Macron, president of the Green Nation, was one of Europe's beacons of hope and the youngest person to hold the office since Napoleon. But behind his dazzling smile and the rhetoric of finance than with being close to the people, he is a president who made millions before he even held public office. A head of state whose fear advisor beat up demonstrators and a man whose love story with his former teacher divides the country as much as his politics. If you want to know why some French people cheer him on and others would rather storm his will, then stay tuned. Because if you look closely, you will also discover dark spots that even a tailored suit cannot. Born in 1977 in Emmanuel, middle-class family of doctors. His parents, a neurologist and a professor, gave him an education, not wealth, but access to the real world, the world of books, pianos, and words. From an early age, this boy showed himself to be a faster thinker than others. Education, not wealth, but access to the real world, the world of books, pianos, and words. From an early age, this boy showed himself to be a faster thinker than others, to talk like an adult, to discuss Molière and Marx with his teachers, and to fall in love with the woman who would later marry him, his teacher Bridget. But more on that later. After graduating from high school, his path led him to the elite. There, Macron was among the top of his class, and so he ended up in the civil service, first in the Financial Supervisory Authority, then in the Ministry of Economic Affairs. But civil servant status was not enough for him. In 2008, he moved to the investment bank Rothschild and the CIA, and that was where the part of his career began that earned him nicknames like the Mozart of finance. At Rothschild, he didn't deal in small stuff. One of his most spectacular deals was the takeover of the dairy giant Nestlé from a subsidiary of the pharmaceutical company Pfizer. The deal was said to be worth $9 billion. Macron, barely over 30 at the time, sits at the table and collects a seven-figure sum. No one knows exactly how much. Officially, he claims to have earned on €1,000,000. With this money, Macron buys his first property in Paris and his political no considerations. At least on paper. In 2012, François Hollande brings him on board as an advisor. In 2014, he becomes Minister of the Economy, and 3 years later, he founds his own party, runs against the political establishment and wins without a party apparatus, without scandals, without visible resistance. But it is precisely this smooth rise to the top that raises questions. Who really supported him? How independent is a president who previously worked in a bank that is closely intertwined with French industry, politics, and even intelligence? Like a fairy tale career is in reality a chess move at the highest level. And as with any good game of chess, one often only recognizes one's true intentions in retrospect. If you Google Emmanuel Macron today, you will officially come across a rather modest fortune. Around €500,000 to €1,000, according to the latest published figures. No comparison to a Donald Trump or a Saudi crown prince. But that is precisely the first deception, because Macron's true wealth does not lie in what is visible, but in what remains. Networks, in confidential mandates, in contacts that no accounting department knows about. During his time at Rothschild, Macron is said to have earned several million. In interviews with Inter, he stated that he earned around €3 million. However, it is noticeable that gaps can be found in later tax returns. Over €1 million of his alleged income could not be clearly attributed for years. The Court of Auditors even complained that Macron spent more than he officially earned between 2009 and 2014. How that fits together is a good question. A president who owns neither a car nor a watch, that is the image. But he lives in a spacious old apartment in the 7th arrondissement of Paris. Not a bad area if you advocate a life without status symbols. In northern France, which serves as a weekend home. Market value well over $1 million. Macron himself likes to portray himself as an anti-oligarch, but his fearmongers come from the same elite circles as he does: bankers, management consultants, media managers. Macronism is not a popular uprising. It is the intelligentsia's version of an IPO. His presidency is also a financial strategy. Tax reform in favor of the rich, relaxation of the wealth tax, promotion of startups and tech elites. The president of the rich is not just what the left-wing press calls him, and how a former Rothschild banker of all people came up with the idea of reducing the tax burden for millionaires is probably clear to everyone. What Macron does with his money is one thing. What he does with your money is another. The suspicion that Macron's policies are not only optimizing France's future, but also the portfolios of his supporters is difficult to refute. Then there's the Banal affair, which caused him to slip under the radar of many people. Another shocking aspect is his love for his teacher, who is 24 years his senior. Emmanuel Macron was 15 when he fell in love. Brigitte Trogu, married mother of 3 children. An affair that was initially met with silence in France, then with ridicule and later with fascination. What began as a French scandal became the love story of an entire republic. Today they are married, travel together, and perform together. And yet this connection remains a mystery to many. Why a teacher? Why the age difference? And why has she remained so uncompromisingly by his side to this day? For Macron, Brigitte is much more than a first lady. She is a mentor, since a political compass. The president of the republic has so heavily on his wife and at this fresh. From the theory that she is actually a man to wild speculation about her role in the LSE. Brigitte is a projection screen, a provocative figure and silicone all in one. And the closer Brigitte moved to the center of power, the more mistrust grew. Not a president for the little people with a teacher from the suburbs, but a couple who have long since become part of the cultural aristocracy. Their designer outfits, their appearances at Chanel, their close friendship with fashion magnates, none of this fits with the image of the popular reformer. And yet, their relationship remains one of the strongest political symbols of the Macron era. Not because it is revolutionary, but because it is so unexpectedly constant. While ministers come and go, while protests rage through Paris, Brigitte remains. And precisely this emotional bond that helps him weather the storm at the top. Speaking of storms at the top, in July 2018, police brutally beating a protester lying on the ground during a demonstration. However, the man is not a police officer. He is Alexander Benalla, Macron's personal security advisor. What initially appeared to be an isolated incident escalated into a state affair. Benalla was not just one employee among many, as the Elysée initially claimed. He had access to sensitive information, carried weapons, accompanied the president on trips and enjoyed privileges that are otherwise reserved for the innermost circle of power. What is even more explosive is that the presidential palace had known about the incident for weeks. It was only Benalla was suspended and later dismissed. But the damage had long since been done. Suddenly, questions arose that went far beyond a mere brawl. Why was Benalla given a diplomatic passport? Why did he have access to internal police databases? And why did the Elysée apparently try to keep the affair under wraps? For many French people, the case was a turning point. The president of order suddenly seemed like someone who only demands order when it benefits him. This is not the only episode that has dented Macron's image. Reports of close ties to major donors, of missing consulting contracts, of dubious PR agencies abroad keep surfacing. A president who governs like a startup CEO. Fast, efficient, but often with too little transparency. A president who does not moderate criticism but counters it, and a president who prefers to conflict rather than discussions. As when the cameras are. The affair was not a political oversight, it was a window. Realize that not everything is entirely clean here. man who mediates between Berlin and Brussels, balances between Kiev and Moscow, as the voice of diplomacy in a Europe that is too often silent. But doubts are growing in the wake of this role. Does this diplomacy serve peace or his own profile? Since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, the French president has been under special scrutiny. His telephone calls with Vladimir Putin, his months-long hesitation regarding arms deliveries, his warning appeals to avoid humiliating Russia. All of this earned him recognition from parts of the left, but harsh criticism in Eastern Europe. While Poland and the Baltic states are taking a clear stance, France's stance remains, as so often, elegant and elusive. And it is precisely into this vacuum that others are moving. In the spring of 2025, a video circulated on Telegram, later on X. Macron on a train traveling with other European heads of state. In his hand, a small white bag, only a fraction of a second, but enough to cause a wave of outrage. Russian channels claimed cocaine. Others spoke of a drug. LSE immediately denied it, but the seeds had been sown. This was not an isolated incident. In recent years, Macron has been the target of disinformation, Russian. Every photo, they are all potentially explosive. His vision of a strong, sovereign Europe sounds good, but cars are burning while national flags fly outside. Macron is caught between political, geographical, and moral fronts, and in this no man's land between ideal and reality, the lines between statesmen and strategists sometimes blur. Much is happening in France at the moment that goes against the opinions of many people. Whether it was during the Olympics, the refugee policy, or his networks in elite circles, there's always plenty to talk about. What do you think of Macron? As someone who probably doesn't live in France, are you interested in that at all? Please let me know. See you soon at Stinkreich. Okay.
Yeah, this was sent to me recently. We have talked about Erica Kirk's mom and dad being connected with. We have talked about Kirk, how she became a part point. We've gone through all of that. We've debunked related. But now we need to look a little bit deeper at this family tree. Because now it has been brought to my attention that Erica may be connected to the Rothsteins. And I want you to see this for yourself, because if this is true, that means that this could have been planned a long time ago. This video here, we'll get into it. Shout out to Project Constitution. Erica Kirk is a Rothstein. People need to see this, guys. This goes way back.
We see a common thread that the same female is commenting on Erica's posts, and she just so happens to look like Erica's roommate who appears in these videos. And her name is Nicole Rothstein. And Nicole is actually not just her roommate or soulmate or best friend, whatever she calls her. Nicole is also Erica's cousin. And this is going to become a much bigger deal as we move forward. Nicole, unlike Erica, at least, at face value, comes from money, and interesting money at that. The Rothstein name is not exactly synonymous with honesty. If they were in a dictionary, those two are on the opposite ends of one another. In fact, antonyms would probably be a better way to put it. In this photo, Erica posted in 2017, she is sitting next to a man whom I wager to be in his 50s, and another man who's standing in front of her, who I would wager is putting the pedal to the metal, pushing 70, the late 70s, that is. At the time, and really up until recently, if you had clicked on that photo on Erica Kirk's account on Instagram, you would notice that there's someone tagged. And that someone tagged is named Alan Rothstein, who Erica says is her uncle. And this old dude, I'm presuming here is Gramps. And this uncle that she references, I can only imagine is on the mother's side and is a member of that unknown segment of Erica's family that is seemingly being obfuscated. In any case, though, when reviewing who Alan Rothstein is, Erica shows him to hide that says, oh my goodness. Uncle Alan has been involved in several criminal operations. For instance, there's a long
Pause. So, yes, Alan Rothstein, and what you're going to see here, all these organizations that, and it goes, and the mom, you know, she worked for Homeland Security, dad worked for defense in Israel. but now it gets even deeper. So pay attention here.
Long case file, which goes into detail about how Alan defrauded someone of hundreds of thousands of dollars. He was supposed to be a consultant, but was actually just an insider, kind of like spy, and was just getting info and using his position to spend hundreds of thousands
and it goes very deep when you see this family tree. And this actually does matter, because at first I pointed to like, okay, well, the mom, she worked for Homeland Security, dad worked for defense in Israel, but now it gets even deeper. So pay attention here.
long case file, which goes into detail about how Alan defrauded someone of hundreds of thousands, just getting info and using his position to spend hundreds of thousands of the company's dollars doing nothing. And Alan, if you're watching this, just want to say, that's not cool, bro. Jerk move. The document then gets deep into legal jargon, but discusses tens of millions of dollars at one point and falsely claimed assets, and then goes into the realm where a lawyer might be mildly confused. At his heart, though, Alan seems to possess the sticky fingers that his namesake is so infamous for, as we shall see. And lo and behold, someone who likes to pilfer the proverbial cookie jar also possesses a number of what are pretty obvious, in my opinion, front companies. I run into a ton of these in videos. They're companies with little or no website, no customer history, no definable product, and they just sit there for years and sometimes decades doing nothing. But they are convenient for running money through, especially ill-gotten money, which seems to be Alan's MO. Not kidding, I was peeping through his companies, and he's got a property management company, a hedge fund, and a bunch of others, and none of them seem to actually do much. That all said, whatever Alan and his family are doing is evidently working quite well for them, I might add, as Alan, though dollar home. Not bad for a guy who seems to have never really worked a job or built anything himself. And that sort of cash also speaks to who was funding Erica's cousin Nicole, and possibly Erica herself, while they live the expensive Manhattan life, doing nothing of material value.
And here's something else we got to bring up too that I had talked about before, right? Something else that I wanted to talk about with Erica Kirk. Remember when we talked about the fact that she was working for that Corcoran Realtor Group in New York City? She had no real estate experience. All right, fine. You got to get started somewhere. You get started with a company that is like selling these luxury houses and apartments. And it just also happens to be the same company that ends up selling Epstein's real estate. That was very weird. I mean, it was kind of strange. Usually when someone's just starting out in real estate, you're not immediately just thrusted into luxury real estate. I found that to be kind of strange. All these different things that just seem to drop into her lap. But if you follow the family tree, maybe now people start to understand how she was able to have those opportunities. Let's continue on here.
Now let's jump another step into the family and hit up Carla Solomon, originally Carla Franceby. This is apparently Erica's dad's sister, so once again, a little info on the mom's side. Carla can be explained in the following words. From the YouTube commenter, Vivian Ballard 391 5 years ago. I'm not implying that she is only interested in the financial stability of men. However, it must be said that she avoids relations with impoverished men. YouTube really is a wonderful place. Thank you for that comment. In other words, Carla married a man about 29 years older than her by the name of Jack David Solomon.
Jack David Solomon. So he married into Erica Kirk's family. This guy's really important. Watch.
A 29-year age difference. Jack himself is a bit of a character. He's one of the few people who have been born in America that possesses such an immense affinity for Israel. And oh yeah, we're going there. Jack has been a leading executive, or simply the leading executive, at a plethora of some of the largest companies on earth, many of which possess multi-billion-dollar valuations and or are simply government operations.
Vice president, president, chairman, foundation chairman, chairman of the board of the directors. How do you have these high, profile titles with every single thing?
For instance, for whatever reason, he was plopped into the chairman position of the board of directors for things like Federal Land and Development Corporation for 36 years, and Federal Research and Development, and Advanced Patent Technical. All sorts of things that when I'm reading it make me go, who are you really, bro? Especially because a sort of thing like that requires power, influence, money, control, and access, and gains you a lot of power, influence, money, control, and access. And for this next bit, I'm just going to skim through some of the organizations he's been highlighted as being a member of from his death website, although I assure you there are likely many, many others. Membership: National Directory Quality Operations Foundation, 1963 to 1966. He's a sponsor of the National Hospital of Denver. He's also the co-founder of the Israeli Armored Corps Museum. Patron or Chadash Orphanage Israel. Vice Chairman, California Democratic Council.
So here is where you start to see the Israel connection, right? So all of these things.
1966 to 1970. Candidate for California State. 1966, Director of the United Jewish Foundation. 1956 to 1967. Committee member for the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. Member of the World Affairs Council, member of the President's Cabinet for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, member Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. Oh yeah, that'd be because he was a controversial casino owner. He was also the director of the Utah Shakespearean Festival, 1999 to 2000. Seems like a weird addition. He's also the member of the American Air Museum in Britain, a foundation member, the Armed Forces Commission and Electronics Association, sounds powerful, National Aeronautics Association, International Association of Business and Professional, honorary, B'nai B'rith, President Club, Utah Valley State College.
This ding, 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 ding. So Solomon, who married into Erica Kirk's family, was also, see, look at the school, Utah Valley State College. Does that sound familiar to you guys? That's the same school Charlie Kirk was killed at. It could just be a coincidence, but I think that that is interesting. So Solomon was also involved there as well. Like, who does all these things and is literally at the top of everything? How do you have the top seat at every single organization or job that you have?
Yes, that's where Charlie Kirk was shot. President Club, Brigham Young University. President Club, World Jewish Congress, life. 32nd degree Mason, Scottish Rite, life. Yeah, so a lot of things should stand out to you there. The UVU, the massive ties to Israel, the powerful committees and organizations. And I could really out for a while just about the Israel connections alone and why that's weird. But if I have to tell you that, then you've probably been living under a rock and missed the dozens of red flags I just.
So there's a lot of red flags here that I think people need to pay attention to. Like I said, how do you get in that type of a situation where you just happen to be front and center of everything? So let's go to the next part here.
In Jerusalem, which is rather a big deal to folks over there. Needless to say, he's sort of a huge.
Go back, sorry.
So deep that Bro paid for and restored the ancient Zion's Gate and Plaza in Jerusalem, which is rather a big deal to folks over there. Needless to say, he's sort of a huge deal in that community. He's also very clearly connected to the highest echelons of the government and business, and the people who decide if and what you shall eat. What an odd family member for Eric could have, considering I was under the impression she was a Christian girl from Scottsdale, Arizona. But if this all didn't elucidate you to the fact that we're talking about some seriously connected people, like I said, he's a member of this thing called, that I can't pronounce, it's a Jewish secret society named B'nai B'rith. It's a very unique organization, very secret society-esque, very Freemason-esque, which apparently is controversial because they claim it's antiseptic to say that they're Freemason related, despite having a huge portion of their founding members actually being Freemasons as well. So take that as you may. But whatever, toss that aside. We also know from that whole blurb, Jackie Fu is a 32nd degree Freemason, which should be ringing bells for everybody. From the most unfamiliar with this sort of quote-unquote conspiracy theory world to the most familiar, the Masons are weird people. I've had personal experiences with them, for sure on a list of theirs. That's a story for another time. But if you're really unfamiliar, putting it as short as I can, it's an organization that is a complete secret society. It's very occult. They worship Satan, but that's a point for another time. They have been known as global manipulators for centuries. Countries have banned them because of who they are, but they are known to use their wealth and intrigue to control nations and to shape the futures of people and nations.
Again, it reminds me of Eyes Wide Shut. That's what it reminds me of.
And may or may not, definitely were, in my opinion, involved in assassinations historically, and things like the planting of people into positions of power that allow them to exert further control and influence, and, you know, the everyday stuff. But I'm sure none of that should sound even remotely familiar or be ringing true for the overarching Erica Kirk story, because that'd be weird. On top of all this, Solomon's also known for some immense scandals, including stock fraud, investor fraud, casino fraud. In fact, he built a casino and then got taken out of the CEO position because of his fraudulent activities. He wasn't allowed to be in control of the company anymore. All sorts of stuff like that. And you can go, huh, it seems like quite the character. And yet he amassed massive fortunes and got appointed to all these big companies and was also appointed to the government to very important roles. So it makes you wonder who he actually knew and who he actually was. But leaving those two oddball characters right in the dust, here's where things are going to get even loonier. Rothstein is not only a relatively rare name, making it more than not simple to trace, it's also an infamous name, most especially if you're a sports aficionado, specifically baseball. Let me explain though. Long before Alan and Jack were manipulating corporations, looting the masses, and stacking up into their $13 million homes, let me reiterate, 13 million, that's the sort of money only like a handful of people on Earth possess. So what's going on there? And I think I know the answer because there is a pretty clear progenitor to the Rothstein proclivity of purloining the populace's purse. And his name was Arnold Rothstein, a Jewish criminal who, it's widely asserted, fixed the 1919 World Series. He bet over $250,000, which at that time is an unprecedented fortune. Roughly $5 million today, but that doesn't really factor in for the lack of buying power and what all that means. He, in essence, made the wager that Chicago would lose to the Cincinnati Red Stockings in the 1919 World Series. For color on who Rothstein is, he didn't come out of nowhere. Rothstein was a longtime fixer, or in other words, cheater, as well as financier of crimes of all kinds, from the least degenerate to the maximum degeneracy. But in this specific instance, with the 1919 World Series, he, through a series of payoffs and threats to, people's families, ensured that the Cincinnati Reds won the people who he bet on, which is illegal for all sorts of reasons. Arnold, though.
Something else I want to mention, because he's getting into like the sports gambling part, but something else I want to mention because we want to fast forward to the family tree that I think people need to take into consideration. So you guys got to remember back in the day with the casinos, because Solomon also was involved with the casinos. You got to remember back in the day, like the mob ran casinos. Watch the movie Casino. There's a lot of, truths in there. And that's another thing I was looking at too. Like, what are the chances that there could have been some type of mob affiliation there as well with Solomon? Now, when we look at this family tree, watch this part.
And I think it's one of the most critical links possible. I hope you all can assist me here with it. Arnold Rothstein, likely resulting from his profession of, murdering people and causing crime, kept it under wraps if and how many children he had and where they lived. And so it's been very hard to really connect to who he is. But if you look down the family tree and at some of his siblings and all that, you will notice that there are more Rothsteins that continue on the family name. But they all do something very interesting across genealogy sites. And the genealogy sites themselves might be in on this. And the thing they do is that they redact the children of these initial Rothsteins. And so that makes it very hard, dare I say impossible, for us to know who are actually Rothsteins today and if they're 100% connected to one another. And so I ask you guys to help me out here to try and find these missing links to start building this family tree so we can officially connect Erica Kirk to these Rothsteins and to these known criminals and justice system manipulators, just generally bad people. And I imagine that they probably keep this quiet and are trying to hide their identities, especially if Erica Kirk is one of them, because it would be pretty obvious that we shouldn't trust these people, as there are generations of Rothsteins who have committed all of these heinous crimes. And to think that they would be in such positions of power today might cause the American people to go, we don't really want that, do we? But I don't want to yap too much, but we have this.
So you guys get the idea. Measurement says, Savvy Sabs, I have confirmed Casino was about Erica's family. I have to say, allegedly, of course, and we have receipts. We'll send. They have been pulling so much down, right? But here's the thing. This is important for people to know, because when I tell you, no, you don't just happen to work hard and things just work out. For some, yes, but for many, they got to where they are because they knew someone. And now you're looking at this stuff with Erica, and now it makes sense how she's been able to just hop around to this thing, to that thing, to this career, to that career, and not really even have to worry about money. That was another thing that stood out to me. Yeah, I know you get money when you win like the beauty pageants, but it doesn't last forever, right? It was interesting to me that she was living in New York City and she's working for this real estate agency, but apparently never sold anything. So she wasn't making money from that. We all know New York City is really expensive. And then she decides to interview for this job for Turning Point USA. And it was kind of weird because she said she was happy doing what she was doing in New York. So it almost kind of seemed like that was an assignment that she was put on. Then you go back to the Romania situation. She started a charity when she was 17, a nonprofit, excuse me, when she was 17, the Romanian Angels or whatever. Yeah, but look at the family that she's coming from. What I'm saying is it's being sold to the public as though, look at me, I worked hard and that's how I achieved these things. When the reality is she had the right connections, the right people in the family to be able to get the door open for those types of opportunities. This really matters. the fact that Jack Solomon, who I had never heard of until recently when this information was sent my way, the fact that Jack Solomon married into her family, and this is the same guy who also was affiliated with Utah, State Valley, the same school that Charlie Kirk was killed at. And then this guy also had his hand in the casino, the Vegas world as well. Then also on top of that, this guy just happened to be the top title of every single job or organization that he was a part of. Then you have the Alan Rothstein connection as well. So it's alleged that that is Erica's uncle. That's not a nobody person. The point is this: Charlie Kirk was never going to have the opportunity to criticize Israel the way that he's doing and stay married to Erica Kirk. You hear me? Charlie Kirk was never going to have the opportunity to continue to criticize Israel the way that he started doing and stay married to Erica Kirk. That's why you hear people saying it seems like she was a honeypot. Things don't add up. There's other things people are posting on social media about. It looks like she may have also had another relationship with a female. Looks like it's an intimate relationship with a female, allegedly. Don't know. That girl looks like she was Miss North Carolina at some point in time, which what it is. What
Charlie Kirk was a character. Bang, bang. I'm shooting at his ass too. He's definitely still out here walking around just like your boy J.E., all part of this big stage play. Ain't giving none of them a hall pass. Everybody getting detention. And of course, you see how he's connected. This whole Epstein situation is still connected to this Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk situation. Both of those guys were characters on the world stage as well too. Who's to say they ain't some of them premature babies that Epstein was raising? And he put all those guys all across the United States and Europe as well too, to make sure they get to the top political spots. I mean, we got to think a little bit more in depth about this shit. This guy was raising salt agents. I mean, we think about the World's Fair when they were doing it at the beginning of eugenics, premature babies in the incubators. That's still part of the same play. He's still doing the incubator baby shit. He's just underground with it. So who's to say they not breeding salt agents? We know that these motherfuckers don't got superpowers. We know ain't no aliens. We know ain't none of that shit really actually matters. We know ain't no aliens. Ain't nobody got no superpowers. Now you can create a human baby. We see that through this gene shit he got playing on the background as some background score type music for theater. I mean, that's why they call the word war theater. This is all theater, all facts, no copies, all theater. Now, the mayor of Utah is supposed to be the one playing Charlie Kirk. Erica is also playing different characters. These are agents. Nobody got no superpowers. What they can do is change up their face. Men can become women. Women can become men. These are agents. They can switch up their skin. They can throw you off. But this is our government. So we're voting for people. We don't really know their background. They could set up a whole family for these people. So they're being raised so they do have a background because they've also set up the family for that family. How did this French guy get in power? How did he marry a man that could possibly be his father? Huh? It's all being paid for. These people are being raised in a certain area and then being sent out. They are on a mission. These are agents. We should stop voting. We should have no more gangsters until we solve this situation right here. This is way more important than anything else we got going on. Who's the real genius? Is it us or them?